I just love the fact we just find a way, man, and proud of our guys.
Welcome to a Flea Flicker Nightcap, a absolute wild one in Detroit. Dan Campbell with a couple ballsy calls on fourth down to end it all, and the Lions walk away with a win, 34-31. First reaction spell.
Yeah, what a win for the Lions. They clinch a postseason berth after the win today, so well deserved. And like you said, it was just because of the ballsy calls that they won.
Yeah, I often said you live by the three, you die by the three. That's kind of what it was like tonight for the Lions. They were 4 for 5 on fourth downs. Two of those were touchdowns. One was for a game-winning field goal at the end of the game. One,
Mhm.
however, did backfire. It led to a Packers score. They did it on their 30-yard line, and they got cut short a couple yards. But I think that the main story here is the Packers were able to stay in this game. The Lions have been playing a lot of close ones. Are you concerned about the Lions moving forward at all?
So I'm not going to hide my feelings. I don't think they're the best team in the NFC. A lot of people have said that they have been the whole year. I think if you look at this team, top to bottom, they have the talent to compete. But we saw it tonight. They lose control of games. They slip or fade in certain moments. But I think it's worth mentioning tonight, Jared Goff stepped up after the pick. I think he didn't throw a single incompletion after that. He ended the game 13 for 13 in the fourth, and they got what they needed to do done. And it was like the story with the Bears on Thanksgiving. They did the job and they won. So we keep seeing this Lions team win, but I just don't think they're, the best. They don't dominate teams. They don't, they don't go into halftime saying, we already won this one. Let's look ahead to next week. And that can be concerning.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Golf played really good tonight. Definitely a reason why they're able to come away with the W. But he almost slipped at that on that fourth down call. That could have been a meme of a lifetime. And if you think about it, ever since he threw the 5 interceptions against Houston on that primetime game, Detroit has been barely covering spreads against bad teams like
Hmm.
the Jaguars, the Bears. They honestly should have lost that game if it wasn't for Matt Eberflus effing up so bad. And then also
Yeah.
the Colts. The Colts played what I thought was a decent game with them the first half.
Hmm.
Fortunately, they let it slip away. And this was another example where the Lions let up in the second half, just like in the Bears game on Thanksgiving. And I think Jared Goff looked great tonight, but he's losing his stock in the MVP race, in my opinion, just because this Lions team doesn't look like it did for the first couple of weeks of the season.
Yeah, I think whenever you talk about the MVP, you needed him to play stellar football, have those games where he only has five incompletions, two or three touchdowns, and he has been doing that. I think another thing worth mentioning is while I was watching this game, one of the notes I had written down was how efficient the Packers were in the red zone. I think with this Lions team, the defense has been what people have talked about, a lot of injuries and whatnot. But the Packers were just, once they got into the red zone, it was Swiss cheese. They were able to run the ball and just get it in there. They had that wide open touchdown to Kraft that went over his head on that first play that they had at the goal line, early in the game, stuff like that. They were able to get the looks they wanted. I thought that was kind of concerning if you're a Lions fan. But on the flip side, when they needed it the most, their defense was able to give up just a field goal attempt, and that ended up being the difference of the game, versus them having to go down the field for a field goal to take the lead or having a field goal to tie. It's a complete different scenario. And if the Packers would have scored a touchdown, I think we would have been talking about the ending of this game being totally different.
I agree, and Jordan Love was the difference. The Packers O-line looked brutal tonight. It did not look great. And it was very annoying watching Matt LaFleur run it with Josh Jacobs every single first down. He was kind of forced to run the ball because he knows that the Lions are going to blitz on first down if they pass, and Love's going to have no time. So he had to rely on getting like one or two couple yards here and there. I mean, Jacobs had 3 touchdowns today, but he also had 20 carries for only 60 something yards. So they need
Yeah,
to fix that run game. But Jordan Love was getting mauled, and I respect Like the fact he's able to hang in there, he made some really tough throws. Christian Watson made a couple big plays, especially that 70-yard catch. It was the
Hmm.
big explosive plays they were hitting tonight for Green Bay, and that's why I'm excited for this team moving forward. Like if they can just Josh Jacobs has run the ball in the past. He had over 100 yards last game. If they get that back on track, this team is looking dangerous if they can hit those big plays.
Yeah, and it's not just Christian Watson. I think obviously tonight, no Jaden Reed, but Jaden Reed's another name that we can kind of put into the heavy, like elite playmakers that the Packers have that they can use. And then Dontavion Wicks isn't in that exact tier where he's the elite playmaker type, but he's a good deep threat. He had a couple of drops today. I mean, they have a good cast. They can rely on someone to make a play every given night and help Jordan Love out. But like you said, with that offensive line, that was the big concern. There were just too many times where Jordan Love didn't, have enough time in the pocket, couldn't step into his throws or make the, second or third read just because of the rush.
Yeah, and I think it's just inexperience with the Packers receivers, really their whole team in general. Their defense has kind of took a transition this year, taking on some bigger free agents. I Christian Watson, I thought about this during the game. He kind of reminds me of being a Green Bay Packers version of Kadarius Toney because he drops the ball so much, and that fumble probably, if you
Mm,
think about it, it cost him the game in the end. That would have brought him down to the Packers 20. Instead, the Lions have it at Green Bay's 40.
yeah,
I really think overall, I mean, this is a great game. Thursday night football games have been amazing compared to the last 2 years where we had
most definitely.
ever since Prime took it over, they've had dog shit games, really bad teams. But even if they've had some poor teams this year, the games have been awesome.
Yeah, and listening to Kirk Herbstreit talk about NFL games isn't too bad either.
No, I
He's a
know you
nice.
were you were down on him
Yeah, I
earlier
mean,
in the
he's a
season.
great, he's good at his job and stuff. I just personally, I'm not like the biggest Kirk fan, but you got to give him respect. He's one of the best in what he does. And it's been fun to listen to him in the NFL because we don't get his NFL takes or his perspective as much,
That's true.
because
Yeah,
he's
you
he's
always
doing
see
all the
him on.
college stuff. So he's
Yeah,
he's talking about college ball, talking about that. But like in the NFL, it's a totally different game. He realizes that. You can tell he realizes that, and that's something I can appreciate.
I agree. And I think Herb Street, you mentioned it. He is a safe announcer. He's not going to say anything out of pocket. He's going to say stuff that makes sense and appeals to a general audience. And I think it pairs so well with Al Michaels because he's the complete opposite. He's a guy who just
Yeah.
going to make jokes. He sees a flag, he says, "Oh, what's new?" Like he's
Hmm.
got his classic lines. He's the humor side of it.
Yeah, he's
And
like
you're
one of
right.
your older, he's like an older uncle you're watching the football game with, and you just got to deal with what comes out of his mouth.
Exactly. Like he's getting up there, so Herb Street kind of levels him off. I'm
Hmm.
starting to like the Prime broadcast now. The only thing I hate though is the red circles, the blitz circles that they have now
Hmm.
during the broadcast because most of the time like they'll circle like two or three guys and they don't even blitz. They just sit in the second level and just wait for someone to come up. They're not even blitzing. Like what's the point of having those? There's
Yeah, I just to take the other side of the argument, I guess what they're trying to do is just give something that, some people don't really know what to look at when they're watching like a play, like the ball gets snapped, where are you looking for a second? Most people look at quarterback. A lot of people don't look at the coverage. I think it's interesting. It just points something out, brings your attention to the offensive line. Not a lot of people actually watch the offensive defensive line like do their job. People are watching the play develop, watching the quarterback. So I think it's interesting. I see the idea. I think they're just trying to highlight potential blitzers or just kind of highlight what the quarterback's looking at pre-snap. I appreciate the idea, but I agree. It sometimes can be just a little bit too much on TV, and I don't really see the purpose.
Yeah, I could see it as being like definitely informative, but I think it's just a little too much. Like, what's the point? Like in that case, just like have it be like Madden and put the circle around the guy with the ball instead. Like it's just
Yeah.
it there's more stuff to the game than just blitzing. So it's like super random. Like you have the line of scrimmage, you have the first down
Hmm.
marker, and then you have the blitz circles, which are who cares?
Yeah,
All
I
right,
agree. Maybe they're just trying to do something different.
All right, enough of me ranting about Amazon. I was gonna rant about Carissa Thompson because she's a god awful
Like the
co-host, but
sideline
I'm gonna
sideline reporter.
yeah, she's terrible. But I'm gonna kick it back to Tim Patrick. He had over 40 receiving yards today. He was actually
hmm
one of my prop bets. I'll include the slide of all three bets I made before this game. Unfortunately Jordan Love didn't hit, but we did go 2-1. No team in December is better than the Green Bay Packers. Last season, this is where Jordan Love stepped up, and I believe the Packers will take this game. My prediction is 27-24 Green Bay with the W. I'm not as confident in picking the spread, so I'm staying away from that. However, I have a couple props that I love. Jordan Love over 250 passing yards. He did that last time against Detroit. Tim Patrick is an emerging receiver for the Lions as well. They picked him up, and he's been nothing but fantastic. I like over 24 and a half receiving yards for him. And then my best bet of the day. Green Bay Packers over 23 and a half total points at minus 130. The Packers are trending upwards and the Lions are trending downwards. The Lions straight up should have lost to the Bears. Let's admit it. 1 hour before kickoff, we'll see what happens. Tim Patrick scored 2 touchdowns today. He was actually cut by the Bills earlier this season. Lions picked him up mid-season, and he's been rounding out this receiving core that's we already know has been just filthy.
Yeah, I agree. I think I was on Twitter during the game and I saw it was a Broncos fan tweeting. I think he included like 6 or 7 names that shouldn't have made the roster. And he's like, all these people were included in the roster over Tim Patrick 2 years ago or a year ago, whenever that was. And you could tell that a lot of people were like, oh, I totally forgot about that guy up until this exact moment. And then we remembered that he had that, he had a couple of nice games against or in Denver where he kind of showed out and was, I mean, he's like an exceptional physical specimen. Like outside, you put him outside and stuff. Today he was in the slot, but he's a beast.
I agree. Yep. And I also wanted to ask you this too, because we were talking about how ballsy it was for Dan Campbell to go for it on those all those fourth downs. But seriously, are you gonna go for it with 30 seconds left, fourth and inches, with the Packers having no timeouts? Are you doing that again?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm pretty like aggressive personally, like with the 2 points with the fourth downs, I'm usually like a go for it. And even in this scenario, I was thinking you kick the field goal just because you take the points, man. Because I mean, David Montgomery got it, obviously, but just think about think about the opposite of what could have happened. They don't get it. Jordan Love has to go 20 some yards in a minute with no timeouts to set up a field goal. I mean, that stadium would have been silent and then they would have been super angry. And this exact thing had happened in the Thanksgiving game last year. It was a situation just like this where it was the Lions, they went for a fake punt. The Packers were ready for it, and then 4 plays later, they scored a touchdown, extend their lead, and then the Packers held on to win. So we've seen Dan Campbell just stick to who he is, and I respect him for that.
I totally thought, yeah, stick to who he was, and that's who he was trying to make the Packers think he was, maybe jump him off sides. If I'm the coach, I'm definitely kicking the field goal, given the fact that you're getting to the quarterback all game. Your defense has been playing well despite the score. It's only a couple of big plays. The Packers
hmm
have no timeouts. Jared Goff almost tripped, and if they don't get that first down, Dan Campbell looks like an absolute clown despite all the touchdowns he got before it. I like we said, you live by the three, you die by the three. I don't like the call, but the Lions still come out with the win, and we still had our bets. How'd you do with your best bets?
Yeah, I mean, I had the Jordan Love pick. I mean, his numbers were good. I think he went like 12 for 20, so he just didn't have that many pass
Didn't
attempts,
throw it
pass
too much, yeah.
completions. Yeah, he put up like 200 yards, 210 yards, something like that. I was kind of hoping that the Lions would kick that field goal, leave him with like a minute, and then he would march down the field, get like 40, 50 more passing yards just for that little prop bet. I just needed like 40 some yards on that prop bet. That could have happened, but wasn't meant to be. And then apart from that, I actually bet Josh Jacobs anytime as well. I have him on fantasy team.
There you go.
So that was a
What was
pretty
his
good
lineup?
bet. It was like minus 150, minus 160, something like that.
Oh, wow, that's pretty deep for him. I thought it'd be like minus
He
120.
scored in 4 straight games now. He didn't score a touchdown his first 6, 7 games this year, and then I think he scored his last 4 now.
What an ad he's been. All the running backs that were signed this free agency, just like
Hmm.
going crazy with their new teams.
Yeah,
Henry,
they mentioned that in the
Saquon, Aaron
broadcast.
Jones, Jacobs. It's
Joe
just
Mixon. Did you say Joe Mixon?
mix in too.
Okay,
Yeah, you
yeah,
loved it
yeah.
because like everybody was doubting the running backs this offseason. They're like,
It
they
was a
don't get
narrative
paid.
before this offseason. I mean, I feel like I've been hearing about the whole you shouldn't pay running back things like the DeMarco Murray days. I was an Eagles fan, so we got DeMarco Murray after he broke the rushing, like he was the leading rusher with the Cowboys. We signed him over. He's like straight up ass. Like we got rid of LaShawn McCoy for this guy. So the narrative's been around in the NFL for years now that you shouldn't pay running backs, and this has been the first year we're seeing so many do so well.
Said DeMarco Murray, speaking of another running back, Saquon Barkley winning MVP this year because you know who I have winning MVP.
Yeah, if Josh Allen
Make
wasn't
your case.
if he wasn't an NFL quarterback, I think Saquon Barkley would be the MVP front runner this year.
Who do the Eagles have left on their schedule?
We got the Panthers, and then we play each division team one more time, I'm pretty sure. And then I
Uh,
think we have the Ravens, or no, we just played the Ravens. So yeah, it's just them, and I think
that's
that's it.
pretty juicy for Saquon's like MVP odds, but the only thing that's worrying me is the fact that he's gonna get injured or Sirianni's just gonna start like Will Shipley and let Gainwell
Hmm.
ride out the season for the playoffs because I mean it's not a bad move, not a dumb move doing that.
I'm looking at our schedule right now. So we have the Panthers this week, but then we have the Steelers, and then we have the Commanders, Cowboys, Giants. We play division rivals our last 3 weeks. We might have the division locked up by then. We might see a lot of Kenneth Gainwell in December, man.
It's very true. And if you're looking at the Bills schedule right here, I think
Hmm.
this game right here will be able to eliminate either Jared Goff or Josh Allen by then, assuming that the Bills don't absolutely blow up against the Rams this Sunday. They play Detroit at
Hmm.
4:25 December 15th. And then the
Wow.
Bills finish out with Patriots, Jets, Patriots. So
Yeah, you getting to play the Patriots twice is pretty lucky. It's like a couple of preseason games at the end of the season there.
those wins will like I think those wins are honestly more valuable than like Josh Allen putting up 300 yards against one of those teams. And
Yeah. Well, I mean, it'll be a good chance to see Drake May too. I'm a big believer in Drake May. I think he's been really good so far this year. Like from what I've seen, I didn't expect him to be this good. He has like virtually no help around him, and he still looked pretty good. I'm surprised by how good he's like running the ball, scrambling and stuff. I mean, they have a good quarterback to build around, but yeah.
I'm excited that like a couple of quarterbacks actually worked out this year. Like we got to figure out
Hmm.
early, especially Jane Daniels, Drake May. I'll get to see Drake May play actually the
Mm.
27th when the Bills play in
Wow.
Buffalo. So that'll be a fun game. I'll now this will be I've seen a few rookie quarterbacks play now. Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, and this will be Drake May. Didn't
Those are the
see
three
Penix
best.
play, but I saw him on the sideline.
Yeah, no, those are the three best rookie quarterbacks this year.
Speaking of Penix, I think Penix could start if Kirk Cousins plays a awful game this weekend.
Yeah, big game for Kirko. He's playing the Vikings in Minnesota, so he makes his return. I mean, I was looking at the slate this week, and apart from like divisional matchups, you have the Chiefs playing the Chargers, you have the Cardinals playing the Seahawks. Apart from those two matchups, and then you already talked about the Bills and Rams, there's not really anything good on the slate.
No,
So that 1 o'clock Falcons Viking game might be the best, for the early slate.
sure. Yeah, I have a buddy coming in for the Bucks Raiders game, but I know that's gonna be a snooze. It's gonna be a
Yeah,
bad
man.
game. I'm just glad the Bills play at 4 o'clock, so I'm able to like get back for that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, that was a good nightcap. Exciting game on Thursday Night Football. Dan Campbell on fourth down inches for the win, and then Jake Bates seals it. We'll see ya. Have a good night to everybody. I'm Tyler. That's
All right.
Pal. Signing
Y'all
out.
have a good night.
That's his third down conversion. Back to him they go. The flea flicker. And a flea flicker. Flea flicker. Blunt throw it back. The flea flicker. Flea flicker.
Now you got a flea flicker.
Well, this is a flea flicker they've been running for many, many years up here in New England.